All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all.
We sit here and wait.
I hope you had a nice lunch break, sunny lunch break outside. So we're going to start the first session of the afternoon on the policy design of the life cycle, policy life cycle. We are going to talk about regional missions and looking at we can design and implement the mission approach at the local and regional level. So welcome everyone. I'm Arno Morrison. I'm one of the thematic experts at the policy learning platform for Smarter Europe. Here you already know Mark is here co-moderating this session with me. And we have Torsten here and Laura around, so do not hesitate to say I any point. So in the policy lifecycle, we are going to look at the design stage. Of course, we all know the policy lifecycle going through the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation stages. Here, we're going to really see how the mission approach can participate in this design approach, whether it is at the agenda setting, at the policy formulation, or at the decision making. So the big question, we have a big question for this session, and we are trying to understand why to adopt a mission-based approach in the policy design. For me, this is clear. We see there is a change in paradigm in the policy world. We see that innovation is not only to promote, is not only about promoting competitiveness, but it's more and more about trying to respond to the big societal challenges of our time. We discussed this morning all the different policy societal challenges that are affecting our regions. And that's why we think that a mission approach is the right approach to address all those societal challenges. But maybe, Mark, you have something to add on this? Why is for you so important to adopt a mission approach?
Thanks, Arnaud. Hello again. Hope you had a good lunch. I think one of the messages I would share with you today is the question of scalability. You know, we often hear these planetary mission objectives, but by working at each government level, you can find the right approach, the scalability of how you, at the local, regional, national level, can actually adapt the mission, the message that you're trying to deliver. So I think it enables you to connect with the different government levels, different funding levels, and connect with the different stakeholders. I think there's an interesting thread you can plot with a mission-based approach to policy development.
Thanks, Mark. And before we move on to our presentation of the Day of the Good Practice, we have a few questions for you. The first one, we want to know if in your region you have adopted a mission-oriented or a challenge-driven approach. So it's very easy, as you can see. You can say yes, you can say no, or you can say you don't know. But then we're going to see what mission and challenge-driven approach is all about. So you will know more about it. So don't know, no. I don't know. Okay. Yes. With first yes for this question. All right. And what about you, Mark? Do you know good regions that has implemented a mission or challenge-driven approach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm based in the south of France, Région Sud, Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. And a couple of years ago, they really put the climate adaptation, climate mitigation at the top of their missions. And so we had an ambition set by the politicians to be the most proactive and reactive on the climate adaptation. So I think you can find how this climate approach filters into the economic, into the research, into the agriculture, into the other policies. So Région Sud is an interesting one.
Exactly. And for the participants who responded yes, you can tell us in a few words your challenge-driven policy or your regional mission. I mean, we see that this approach is more and more taken on board with different policymakers. We were doing a peer review actually in the Azores in Portugal, and what was very interesting was they were the first regions to implement this regional mission approach within their regions in Portugal. And in this peer review, they were trying to address challenge-driven innovation policies for university industry collaborations. So trying to find those sort of mini missions to design those type of multi-actor collaborative projects to address very concrete and targeted societal challenge in the SOS. Okay, so we have one, climate neutrality, green innovation. Yes, that's a big one. We all know this big mission at the EU level, trying to tackle climate change and become carbon neutral by 2050. This is one of the mission approach. Integration of migrants, that's a good one. The regional development program is designed around 5 missions. Okay, that's very interesting. Would be great to know which region is that. Sustainable tourism, transition to circular economy. So all good missions that you have here. And we are very lucky to have with us Luc Hulsman from the Northern Netherlands, who is going to share some good practices. Because what's very interesting about the Northern Netherlands is that they have been implementing and designing those sort of challenge-driven policies for a very long time now. And they have many, many good practices that you can have a look at here. They designed their S3 priorities around societal challenges. And here you can see this good practice on energy transition or the silver economy. But Luc will also talk about the open innovation call. The policy learning platform can help you, of course. We have many good practices on this topic of challenge-driven innovation policies or regional missions. We wrote with Mark a very, very nice policy brief on regional missions, providing very concrete and targeted policy recommendations for you to start experimenting with this concept of regional missions. We had a nice webinar on entrepreneurial universities, looking at the third mission of universities. It's not only about doing research and education, but it's more and more about this third mission, trying to have an impact on society. And I talked already on this very interesting peer review that we had in the SOS with Mark last year on this topic of challenge-driven innovation policies. What are regional missions? Very concretely, this is taken from the policy brief on regional missions. So it's really about trying to find solutions to very concrete societal challenges that you might have in your regions. It involves 3 main dimensions. You need to have directionality. So you need to know where you're going together to select a specific societal challenge. It needs to be legitimate. So you need to have this sort of shared agenda with your stakeholders to address those societal challenges. It involves also a lot of policy coordination. You need to bridge and across the policy silos, so work across departments to address those big societal challenges. You need to have clear targets. It needs to be bold, of course, and you need to involve different sectors to address those regional missions. Last but not least, very important, policy implementations. It involves a policy mix. An integrated policy mix using different policy tools, working together to address those targets in your mission. In this policy brief, we expressively address this concept, and we say maybe for regions, a good way to start with experimenting with missions is to start doing mini missions. So it's to work on very concrete challenges in your region, not trying to address carbon neutrality by 2050, but really address specific challenges that you have to motivate and to rally your stakeholders to work on a short time frame to address place-based challenges in your region. Again, this is what we did in the SOS. Very interesting peer review. I recommend you to look at the report if you're interested. And we also have many good practices, and this is one of them. This is an Excella project in Cantabria in Spain. And here what they do is more like of a challenge-driven type of a policy tool. Here, what they try to do is to connect startups with concrete challenges in large companies. So you can see some of the challenges that large companies might have. So this idea of a challenge-driven policy is really to address specific challenges. It can be at the level of companies as here, but it can be like more societal challenges as well. But we can move on to our first our presenter of today. Luc, you are going to tell us how to design mini missions. Have you been very successful to do that in the Northern Netherlands? So the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arno. Pleasure to be here to share with you the experience we have with basically working towards missions. Because let me stress that working with mission-oriented approaches for us in my region, Northern Netherlands, has been kind of a step-by-step process, a process that we started almost like 10 years ago. It wasn't that overnight someone said, okay, we should work with missions, we should define missions. No. We started really small, looking at challenges, seeing how to solve those challenges, and then from one step, we kind of evolved into the next step. And we did so by experimenting a lot, taking initiatives, initiating projects. And I'm happy to share with you the experience we have with a few of them. First, a few words about my region, the Northern Netherlands. Actually, it consists of 3 provinces, Groningen, Friesland and Drenthe. In total, they take up about 1.7 million inhabitants, 110% of the region. We are a strong innovator. And I put in the slide as well some innovation characteristics. Maybe this is some kind of a personal opinion. I think we are pretty good in the Northern Netherlands in what I call bottom-up. Starting new initiatives, experimenting. There's a strong tendency to act in my region, and also quite strong tendency to collaborate. So not to start things on your own, but always look for someone who can help you to make the outcome better than it would have been if you did it on your own. And I think this tendency to collaborate kind of rests in maybe some historic reason, in the sense that the north of the Netherlands historically wasn't the most prosperous region of the Netherlands. So there was a necessity to collaborate, a necessity out of the knowledge that we would do better, would stand stronger if we collaborated. The regional innovation strategy, risk-free, I think it's pretty characteristic in the sense that we put societal challenges at the core of the strategy, and we already have been doing so since 2014. So the first risk-free was already the case that we actually express the priority areas in terms of societal challenges. In the current strategy, they are called transitions. So we identified 4 transitions in our current strategy where we believe that we can give a contribution to the solution, to the outcome, but as well we have the competences and the abilities to take advantage of opportunities, as well business opportunities these challenges provide us, or these transitions provide us with. So why did we do that? Why already in 2014 did we decide to start with challenges? I think a large part of it had to do we realized that we were and we still are a region in transition, in the sense that we are moving from an economy strongly rooted and strongly benefiting from the presence of natural gas, production of natural gas and trade of natural gas. This is what made us rich. The world is changing, so we are moving on, and we have been already for quite some time, towards a more diversified economy, dependent on not natural gas anymore, with a more various mix of energy sources, part of it being hydrogen. So transformational change, we realized that this asks more than just innovation. This is a movement where innovation can only be seen as a kind of intermediate step. So we took a long-term perspective, and by choosing challenges, I think we were able to kind of capture a sense of urgency, or maybe even stimulate a sense of urgency that this move, this change was needed. And as well, it enabled us to create a kind of broader commitment within the region. You know, smart specialization is about making choices. It's about, okay, we favorize you, but we don't favorize the other. And we thought that wouldn't work in our case. We weren't in the position that we even were able to exclude anyone in advance. And by choosing challenges instead of, for instance, sectors or technology areas, we were able to do so. And we also realized that to make this change, to make these transitions, we needed to look across borders, across sectors, across institutions, but also across interests. This is a picture I've taken it from the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany and Rumble Company. This picture kind of depicts the cornerstones of the building blocks of a mission-oriented innovation policy. I'm not going to explain all this picture. I just highlighted 3 elements: the sense of ownership, a common direction, to engage different actors, and also a space for experimentation. These are building blocks in their picture, and maybe without even realizing it, these were elements we were capitalizing on already from 2014. So no deliberate start towards a mission-oriented policy, but in reality, in hindsight maybe, even we did. So transitions, a movement towards something new, we realized that a kind of joint movement was needed, this overall commitment, and this was translated into the strategy as with emphasis on fostering continuous process of initially entrepreneurial discovery. Later it became a broader in terms of open discovery, in the sense that we realized that for these transitions to be fostered and for these opportunities to be taken, we needed to create and take the energy present in the region and translate this energy into projects, experiments, initiatives. And that's why we came up with the principle of the dance floor, creating favorable conditions for actors in the region to become part of this process, not only to become part, but actually start initiating projects, initiatives, collaborating with others. And we as a government, we realized, okay, for this to happen, we need to do something. We need to create favorable conditions. For instance, create more openness in the system, actors to be able to find each other more easily, but we also need to do something with money. And as a government, we are responsible for money. In fact, we are, as an alliance, we are managing authority for ERDF. So we realized that we need to look at ourselves as well. Look in the mirror, what as a government, what can you do? If you want your actors to be more innovative, you need to be willing to do so yourself as well. So and this was the reason why we started experimenting with public funding, experimenting with ERDF, in the sense that ERDF, we not only aimed to support good projects, but we actually experimented with the ERDF kind of system as well, in the sense that we tried to use ERDF to influence behavior, to foster collaboration, and to create even more commitment. How did we do so? And this is one example already mentioned by Arnaud. Open Innovation Call. This is an ERDF initiative. Actually, this is a call for tender. We started with this project in 2017, and it has had quite an impact on the way we deal with ERDF nowadays in our region. So what were the big changes? The big changes, first of all, were made in terms of focus, a shift towards challenges, focusing on challenges, but also focusing on fostering these joint collaborative processes. And as well, we made quite some changes in terms of the way these calls, this open innovation call is being designed. Designed truly as invitations for actors to take part, to commit. Really an appeal to come forward. Maybe it looks a bit like innovation procurement. Not completely similar, but there are similarities. And I think one important element to highlight is that when you are familiar with ERDF or with any kind of public money with calls, probably it's almost, not always, but often the case that the calls are designed and the demarcations are made not in terms of objectives, but in terms of activities. It means that someone, a company, comes to a desk and needs some money. The first question asked is, where do you need it for? What are you going to do? Okay, if you do this, you can get the money. If you do that, you won't get the money. But when you're talking about innovation, for innovators, it's often pretty difficult to say in advance what they actually are going to do. They have a quite clear picture about the problem they are trying to solve or the idea they have in their mind, but not actually what is needed to make it work, to make it happen. So we thought, okay, we need to do something with that. So this call is designed alongside objectives. The basic idea is if the objective of an initiator aligns well with the objective of the call, then you have something in hand. Then you have a similarity important enough to not to care so much as much anymore about what they're actually going to do. This means much more flexibility along the way for initiators to reach that solution. And of course, then it's important that this objective is being defined really specific, and also that monitoring is in place to make sure that what's being done is actually needed to reach this outcome. So this was also part of the design process to give more attention to monitoring. 4 years later, we took this experiment one step further in the sense that this was COVID time, and we started a new experiment, not starting with the call itself, not starting with the invitation, but actually starting with a kind of general issue we observed, that COVID-19 exposed inefficiencies in the workings of our health innovation ecosystem. So what did we do? We organized a meeting. This is where it all started. We sent out invitations to actors, all relevant actors we believe were relevant in the solving of this, the solution of this issue. So we organized a meeting. This was a brainstorm meeting, few hours meeting, and we just raised the question, do you agree with this general issue? And if you talk to each other, can you then come up or conclude what the most urgent element is? Because it is a really broad issue. The most urgent kind of sub-issue which needs to be addressed. And if so, we invite you to elaborate on that. So not just leave it by this meeting, but organize next meetings yourself, and we will facilitate that. And we'll give you some time to translate this into a common vision, a common idea how to solve this. So how to reach this solution. So these stakeholders, they accepted the invitation, and after a few months they returned. They said, hey, we have an idea, and not only that, we all agree that this is the right path, because this is one condition we set. Okay, doesn't matter which solution you come up with, but all of you have to agree on the solution, because otherwise there won't be any money. So luckily they agreed, and they came forward with kind of the outline for an initiative, and we said, okay, if you manage to elaborate on this and work this out into an actual application, we will make sure that there will be a process ready to facilitate you in actually receiving money to implement this project. And we did so within the existing governance of the program, which means that the eventual application was assessed by an independent committee of experts. And the project was implemented, 5 million euros. It took I think 3 years' time, and it was really a success. And not only that, the project was a success, but also, and I still remember one of those participants saying to me after the first meeting, you know what, this is interesting. Even if we don't manage with this project, even if we don't succeed, I'm sure that I will have more contacts with this and this and this colleague than what I had in the previous 3 or 4 years. So ERDF to support the project, but also to intense collaboration within the ecosystem among actors. Not working with missions yet. Like I said, this is has been a step-by-step approach. A little bit of theory. You are surely familiar with the views of Mariano Mazzucato that missions should be bold and ambitious, targeted and measurable, already mentioned by Arno as well. And I also refer to the policy brief published a little bit more than a year ago. You were one of the authors of saying that when you translate these opinions of Mario Mazzucato to the regional level, and when you translate it to societal challenges, then it's not so obvious that what Mazzucato says can work in practice at its lower regional level, because societal challenges are often open-ended and wicked, making it pretty difficult to formulate them and to give them specific targets. And I added my own opinion as well. I believe for missions at the regional level to work, they should really relate to the actors missions should have an effect on. It should stimulate them to really to get out of their chairs and to start doing something. And to do so, they should be concrete, understandable, and also they should have, I believe, a relatively short time span, because then it's the most likely that the mission will actually be translated in something concrete. And again, a small quote out of the policy brief for mini missions, and I fully agree with that. You should follow a small wins strategy, so small scale, and trying to foster bottom-up initiatives. So there's a combination of top-down, but the actual success, I think, for a large extent, should come out of this bottom-up. That you manage to engage your actors enough, and to also to maybe not convince, because they should convince themselves, but for them to realize that there's something not only for them to contribute, but also to gain from these changes. Yeah, again, step-by-step approach. We are kind of now, maybe not the final step, but the step, like I said, after 10 years, that we actually start working with missions. And this is an example I really would like to share with you. At the moment, this is a new initiative funded by Horizon Europe called European Circular Innovation Valley. So this is the Regional Innovation Valleys initiative, European project, 19 partners, 8 different regions, and this is really about building an interregional innovation ecosystem around circular economy. I call it one big experiment because there's various elements in it which are pretty new and pretty daring, and it's something we think it will work, but we're not sure yet. One element is that we incorporated this idea from our Northern Netherlands strategy of this dance floor. So to create the right conditions for actors to become part of this, to make it attractive enough to be part of this. So create an environment where actors can easily meet. So we intend to, for instance, start experiments where we identify which companies are working on which missions already, on which challenges already in the individual regions, and where complementarities might be. We've asked Ron Bosma, maybe you heard of it. He's a quite well-known researcher. He has developed a model. He can make some kind of predictions about complementarities between regions, or possibilities to collaborate. We have involved in this this project, and we will actually start working with missions. One overall mission for the project, and a few sub-missions for these missions to give direction, and again to initiate this bottom-up engagement, but also to capitalize on the assets, the qualities, the potential each region has. So how will it work? Complicated picture. This is my final slide. I don't know how much time I've left. I think I'm over it. So how will it work? And let me stress, this is an ongoing process. We're not at the end yet. This project started in September last year. In terms of this picture, we are almost halfway now. So where did we start? Basically, we started with, I didn't say that yet, this project has been an initiative of 3 regions: Navarra in Spain, North Middle Sweden in Sweden, and the Northern Netherlands. And we know each other already for some time, so we have a history in collaboration. So we started this, and then we thought, okay, if we want to make it work, which regions do we need could complement us in various ways? So we already did some analysis prior to even the design of the initiative and the application. And out of this analysis, we invited several other regions to take part in this initiative as well. But as soon in September, as the project started, we intensified this analysis. In fact, in each region individually, did several exercises where they identified the challenges most relevant to their region. And also they did an exercise where they took stock of the assets, the competences, the capabilities they have in their region to not only contribute to the challenges in their region, but possibly also to other challenges. So 9 individual exercises, all were validated by stakeholders. So already a lot of stakeholder involvement from the start. And then what we did was the next step to bring it all together and try to find where do we have common ground, which challenges are the most relevant, maybe not to all of us, but at least a group of partners within the project, and which region is most suited to contribute, to take part in solving this joint challenge. And this is where we are now at the moment. This is the next step, translating these challenges into actual missions. Next week we will have a consortium meeting in Dalarna in Sweden, really intense program, and there we will actually, at least we plan to define the overall mission and the mini missions for this project, and they are supposed to give direction to everything what we will do afterwards. And afterwards, the first step afterwards will be to translate these mini missions, or actually to form kind of sub-mission groups or mini mission groups. So regions, small groups of regions who we identify as being the best related to the mini missions, and they will start working together to actually solve missions and actually find and seize business opportunities. We will do so within this dance floor. Like I said, we will start several experiments, but also we will have some money. Because within the project, we will have money, first of all, for experimentation. There is an experimentation fund where actors, and particularly businesses, will be able to start new initiatives. Really easy money to start with the idea that this easy money can become a kind of stepping stone towards something bigger. And these are the bigger circles in the lowest part of the picture, that the overall objective is to translate these experiments, these first encounters, into actual collaborative innovation projects. And there will be money available as well to support these initiatives. And overall, this is a 5-year project. So at the end of 2029, we hope to have accomplished what we have in mind. But surely, like I said, this is one big experiment. There's also just a learning aspect. I think it's really, really, really important. And we surely have to make adjustments. This is a clear picture, but I'm pretty certain that in reality, the arrow will go like this. But, well, this is where my presentation ends.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Luc. That was great. Thanks so much for sharing all those insights on how to design mini missions. You gave us a lot of things to reflect. I really like, because you started by saying we started this idea of going toward addressing societal challenges as a sense of urgency in your regions, and I think that's very important. Also, what I take from your presentation, something very interesting, and it goes with these ideas of small wins, right? Those small wins they need to bring rapidly concrete and visible results, and that's what you achieve. Also, you mentioned the Open Innovation Call was a way to shift the mindset of the stakeholders, and I think that's also something very interesting when we look at the small win approach. It operated at the local regional level, trying to address very specific, concrete, place-based societal challenges. And last but not least, it was endorsed by all the different stakeholders. So I've got a few questions, but I think Mark has some questions as well for you. There was something very interesting. You mentioned a lot experimentation. And I think this is key when we take this mission approach. There is this issue about experimenting, but we all know that when you experiment with new policies, you also take a lot of risk. Right. So I was wondering how to motivate, to convince politicians, other policymakers, stakeholders, that it's important to experiment with new policy tools. Do you have something to tell us on that?
Yeah, I think I can add a bit to what I already said. That, like I said, this has been a 10-year process. And I also said that, my opinion, in my region, we're not so good in top-down. Not so good in giving direction and in coordinating things. So there wasn't a grand plan. It wasn't like, okay, now we're going to do this. We take 10 years, and in 10 years' time, we aim to be there. It was really a step-by-step approach. In the beginning, we didn't know where to end. And it was also a matter of what can we do, and also, how can I say it, prevent ourselves from going too far that our politicians or actors wouldn't understand it or even said no. So it was kind of stretching the boundaries constantly. We started small because this was what was reachable at that point. And then the next year or 2 years later, we said, okay, this worked, everyone happy. No, now we can take a next step. And again, not in a grand design, not in a really meticulously written plan in advance. At the time, we thought, okay, this worked, and now we have some vague picture where we want to go to, but this might work now. And then often it did, but sometimes it didn't. Also experiments I didn't tell about, which didn't work, or took a lot more time than I expected to make it work. And it almost always had to do with creating commitment. And to be honest, not so much creating commitment among our stakeholders, not even our businesses, because they are, not all of them, but quite a large part of them, and I didn't even realize in the beginning, but they're not focused only on short-term profit, maximization. They realize that the world is changing, and they realize to be still present in 10 years' time, they need to, look a bit ahead and not only be involved in their daily business. Not all of them, but quite a large amount of companies in my region did that way. But the tricky thing, to be honest, was always ourselves, our government, our politicians, because they don't have this 10 years, at least in my region, this 10-year horizon. They look maybe 4 years ahead, and they want some concrete results, and especially results for their businesses. And this was all constantly, almost a dance with them, for them to agree, okay, yeah, we should do this. Because I heard a company saying last week that he or she took part in this initiative and she was happy about it. This always helps.
Thanks, Luc. I think that's so interesting, your view, because in the theory, the Mazzucato theory is about being super bold, super ambitious,
right?
Starting with a big mission that will change everything, but step by step, very concrete, place-based challenges is also the way, as you demonstrated in your region, what you have done. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, before I ask my question, if there are questions from the audience, we'll bring a microphone. So if you don't forget to raise your hand. But one first comment. If I was in the room today, and I can look down, so I'm not in the room, you are, and you're sat in this session, and you're saying, I've come here to listen to Luke and listen to the policy learning platform, learn about regional missions. I think what we've just heard here is a perfect encapsulation of what practitioners and policy learning platform can bring to you. Because if you have to go back to your regions and that somebody, you know, higher up, an elected person or your director will say, well, what did you do in Krakow, you know, apart from shopping and sunbathing? And you can say, well, regional missions. Not only do you get insights on the theory, you know, it's grounded, it makes sense. You have practitioners such as Luke who can demonstrate the detailed implementation rather than Arnaud and Mark telling you, experts, what do they know? You know, you've got 10 years of experience here, and then you as the people who are going to capitalize on this information, you can do it even quicker. Luke struggled for 10 years. Look, you know, he's here telling you what happened. You can learn from others and get that policy design process going quicker. So I think it's a really good summary of what we can do with you together. The question, Luke said, you know, companies aren't just about, you know, short-term profits, but it does help to have some of your innovation funding, your open calls, the cascade funding. So 2 concrete questions. In terms of the ERDF money you used, and, you know, to put ERDF and experimentation in the same sentence is already a leap of imagination for many people, but what was the average budget grant you had in your innovation call, the open call? And the second one is, now you're in the Region Innovation Valley Initiative, the cascade funding mechanism, what sort of, you know, support can SMEs expect to deliver and join you on this mission journey?
Right. The Open Innovation Call, we funded relatively large-scale initiatives. Like I said, these were joint collaborative projects, mainly aimed at improving the workings of the ecosystem. Maybe sounds a bit abstract, but to make sure that, for instance, businesses and knowledge institutes would work together more effectively, and that businesses would be able to find the right person at the knowledge institute, for instance. And these were kind of program-like projects, few million euros per initiative.
Right. Big tickets.
ESIF, different story. Like I said, our intention there is to kind of combine and to create, first of all, this experimentation fund, and having it as a kind of stepping stone towards the bigger money. So make it attractive for companies, also smaller companies, to actually become part of this environment. And the idea is, and a few weeks ago I had a really interesting session about this with my French colleagues, because they are responsible for designing the calls. And I shared my ideas about this experimentation fund, because almost always I hear for companies, you need to have easy money. It needs to be simple, needs to be easy. And I fully agree with that. But if you only we have like 2 million euros within this project for easy money. If we make it really easy for 19 partners in 9 regions, if we open the desk, you know, the budget will be depleted in a few months' time, I'm afraid. So what we say is, okay, it can be easy money, but conditional. You need to be part of this ecosystem. You need to be part of the dance floor. You need to register yourself as a potential dancer, take part in the activities, have a willingness to show up. If you do, and if you sign, then you have the access to the easy money. And this will be like maybe 5,000-10,000 euros. Like I said, it might be initially might be even for travel, for a consultant, for some research initiative, maybe a prototype, things like that.
Quite open.
Quite open. But like I said, conditionally upon, it should follow out of the engagement within the dance floor. They don't get the money out of nothing.
Okay.
So this will be kind of controlled environment. And then these open calls, I'm not sure, you talk about, think about like 300,000-400,000 euros minimum per initiative, so already a bit larger.
Okay.
And this open experimentation fund, this is obviously new for this project. And I can also say that specifically for my region, we also managed to create a kind of mirror ERDF experimentation fund project. So in the Netherlands, we are able to go a bit further than what maybe our partners from the other regions can do. And I'm really happy that we managed with that because, like you said, ERDF experimentation is not always
On the journey.
All right. I think we don't have time for
already.
any other questions. We're already 1 minute and 30 seconds late. But thanks so much. Thanks so much, participants, for being here. Of course, we always at your disposal if you have any further questions on this topic of missions. With Mark, we really like to work on these topics of challenge-driven innovation policies. And thanks so much, Luc, for being with us today for this session and sharing all your insights and knowledge on 10 years of experimenting with this type of challenge-driven and mission approach. So thanks so much. Thanks, Mark, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you do have questions to Luke, he's not going to run away. You can capture him as he walks down the stairs.
I will be here.
Thanks again, Luke.
Thanks.